The officer's laughter echoed through the station. "Special forces? Your mom?" he smirked, shaking his head as the young girl clutched her backpack tighter, her eyes filled with both fear and defiance. She whispered, "You'll see." Seconds later, the room fell silent as the door swung open. Heavy boots struck the floor, measured, powerful, undeniable. Every head turned. The officer's grin faded instantly, replaced by disbelief. This wasn't just any mother. This was someone who carried authority, courage, and secrets that could silence a room. But why did he mock her in the first place? And what would happen now that she'd arrived? Ava was just 12 years old, a quiet girl with a love for sketching superheroes in the corners of her notebooks. To her, her mom wasn't a superhero in a cape, but she was still the strongest person she knew. Her mother served in the military, gone for weeks at a time, returning with tired eyes and arms always ready for a hug. At school, though, Ava kept this part of her life mostly to herself. She had learned that not everyone believed her when she spoke about her mom's service. Some classmates laughed, some whispered that she was making it up, and even a few adults gave her the kind of look that said, "Kids, like you don't come from families like that." That day at the station, Ava only wanted someone to listen. Instead, she found herself face to face with an officer who dismissed her every word. His laughter wasn't just mocking, it carried a sting, a reminder of how often her truth was doubted, how easily her voice was ignored. But what he didn't know, what no one in that room could have guessed, was that the person Ava was waiting for was about to change everything. The laughter from the officer wasn't just a chuckle, it was a sharp, dismissive bark that made Ava's cheeks burn. She tried to explain again, her small voice steady but trembling at the edges. "My mom, she's special forces." But the officer leaned back in his chair, shaking his head. "Sweetheart, I've met a lot of parents. Let's be real, kids like you don't have moms like that." Those words cut deeper than the laughter. Kids like you. Ava knew exactly what he meant. Her skin, her neighborhood, her quiet presence in a world that never expected much of her, it all came together in his smirk. Other officers in the room glanced over. A few chuckled, one muttered under his breath, probably just making up stories. Ava felt her throat tighten. She wanted to disappear, but she stood her ground. Her mom always told her, truth doesn't need defending, it just needs patience. Minutes ticked by. Every sound in the station, the ringing phones, the clack of keyboards, felt like it pressed against her chest. The officer leaned forward, lowering his voice. "You know, lying to law enforcement is serious, right? We don't have time for fairy tales." Ava's fists clenched around her backpack straps. For a moment, she thought of running out, leaving them to their disbelief. But she stayed, because she knew her mom was coming. And then footsteps, heavy, deliberate, echoing against the tile floor. The room grew quieter with each step. Officers lifted their heads, conversations stalling mid-sentence. The same officer who mocked Ava craned his neck toward the door, his smirk faltering. The door opened. A woman in uniform stepped inside, tall, commanding, with presence that filled the entire room. Her gaze was sharp, steady, and unflinching, the kind of gaze that could cut through steel. Ava's heart leapt, but she stayed silent, watching. This was her moment. The officer who laughed suddenly pushed back in his chair, clearing his throat, trying to mask his surprise. But the silence in the room said it all. No one laughed now. And yet tension didn't fade, it thickened, because what Ava's mother was about to say would not only silence the doubt, but expose the very prejudice that had fueled it. All eyes locked on the woman in uniform as she strode forward. Her boots struck the floor like a drumbeat of authority. Ava's chest swelled with pride, but her mother's face was unreadable, stone-cold, unshaken. The officer who mocked Ava straightened in his chair, tugging at his collar as if the air had suddenly grown heavier. He forced a laugh. "So, you're the mother." Her gaze snapped to him, sharp enough to freeze him mid-sentence. "I'm not just her mother," she said, her voice calm but firm. "I serve this country in ways you couldn't begin to imagine." The station grew silent. Phones stopped ringing. Conversations died mid-word. She took one step closer, her shadow falling across his desk. "And while you were busy mocking my daughter, I was leading missions overseas, missions you'll never read about because they're classified, missions where lives depended on me." The officer's smirk collapsed into silence. His eyes darted to the others in the room, looking for support, but no one moved. Her voice dropped lower, more cutting. "What gave you the right to dismiss her? Was it her age, or was it the color of her skin?" The words hit like a hammer. The weight of truth hung in the air. No one dared to breathe. Ava's small figure seemed to grow taller in that moment, standing beside her mother, shielded by her strength, yet glowing in her own. The officer's face flushed red, but he said nothing. He couldn't. The silence was his verdict. Ava's mom finally leaned in, her voice steady as stone. "Never underestimate a child's words, especially when all they carry is the truth." And with that, she turned, not to leave, but to take her daughter's hand. The room remained frozen, every officer forced to confront what had just been exposed. But this wasn't just about one officer or one laugh. It was about something much deeper, and Ava's mom wasn't done yet. For a long moment, the station stayed silent. The officer shifted uncomfortably in his chair, but he didn't dare speak again. The laughter, the smirks, the dismissive glances, all of it had been stripped bare in front of everyone. Ava squeezed her mother's hand, and for the first time that day, she felt seen. Not just by her mom, but by the entire room that had once treated her like a joke. Her mother didn't ask for an apology. She didn't need one. The truth had spoken louder than any excuse could. Instead, she looked around the room, her eyes sharp and unyielding, and left them with words they would never forget. Respect isn't something you give when it's convenient. It's something every human being deserves, especially when they've done nothing but tell the truth. As Ava and her mother walked out of the station, the air felt different. For Ava, it wasn't just about proving them wrong. It was about reclaiming her voice in a world that too often tried to silence it. But here's the harder truth. What happened to Ava wasn't just a moment. It's a reflection of something deeper. Too many kids grow up being doubted, dismissed, or ridiculed, not because of what they say, but because of who they are. Too many voices are silenced before they're ever heard. And so the question remains, how many more Avas will have to fight to be believed? Because until we stop judging truth by the color of the skin it comes from, injustice will keep walking into rooms, laughing, mocking, and silencing. But just like Ava's mom proved that day, courage has a way of silencing injustice. So I'll leave you with this. When faced with someone's truth, will you laugh it off, or will you choose to listen? If you are enjoyed from this story, drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe, because tomorrow the story gets even bigger.